and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is Jay. Hi, Jay.
Hi, and hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. A little concerned about the state of the world, but otherwise great.
Yeah, right? It's things are very unsettling, and very scary. And I just don't even know what to make of things right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we always have romance novels, right? To help take us away from all of that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the best escape right now.
Yes, definitely. It really is. And I think, things aren't going to improve very rapidly. So, I think that we need these kinds of escapism and outlets to really take us away from all that. So thank you for writing and doing all that you do, Jay.
It's my escape as well. Sometimes you just need to have this guaranteed happy ending.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. You are correct about that. So, you've been writing romance novels for quite some time. And what was your first published novel?
The first one I published was Backwards to Oregon. It wasn't the first one I wrote, but the first one I published. The first edition came out at the end of 2007. Back then I was with a US publisher called L-Book, which no longer exists. And it was the second novel I wrote in English, but the first one I published.
Okay. Backwards to Oregon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's a historical romance, and it's set in 1851 on the Oregon Trail. And one of the two main characters is Luke, who's pretty much a reader favorite. And she is actually a woman who's been living as a man ever since she was a teenager. And I think if she were living today in our more modern times, I think she would have probably identified as non-binary. She really can't imagine living as a woman, especially not in the 19th century where women had no rights. But she also doesn't quite 100% identify with the men either. So which makes her very much alone and a loner. She doesn't really have anyone. And in Backwards to Oregon, she meets Nora, who is a single mother who works as a prostitute in a brothel to make ends meet and to feed her 3-year-old daughter. And Luke ends up proposing to her without telling Nora that actually she's not a man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they are now on a journey of 2,000 miles from Missouri to Oregon, across the entire country in a wagon train, and starting out not trusting each other. They are both of them learn to rely only on themselves. And it's an interesting journey.
Yeah, it sounds it. That's great. I have not read that, so that is definitely right up my alley. I love, I love those settings from like the Old West. Those are some of my favorites. So yeah, I will definitely check that out. That sounds good. Now, Backwards to Oregon is actually part of a series. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. It's part of the Oregon series. It was so popular with readers, and I got so many feedback emails asking for a sequel. And at first I was like, no, I think the book is complete. There won't be a sequel. But the characters, they wouldn't let me go. And so it's an entire series, the Oregon series, with 2 full novels, Backwards to Oregon, and then the sequel, Hidden Truths, which is set 17 years after Backwards to Oregon. And when Amy, the daughter, is an adult and she gets her own romance. And we also have a collection of short stories, Beyond the Trail, and 2 single short stories, and kind of a spin-off book, Shaken to the Core, that features Nora's and Luke's granddaughter, and it's set in 1906.
Wow. So you really, that's 3 generations of women.
Yep.
That's so cool. What a
Yeah.
great concept. I don't think I've ever encountered anything like that where, writers have done sequels in generations. That's great.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
That Lucy, the granddaughter, jokes at one point that like no one in her family, like only one person, her brother, is straight, but the rest for them it's completely normal not to be straight.
Oh, that's so cool. What a utopia, huh?
Yep.
Very cool. So you published that back in 2007, like the
Correct.
first one, and what then is your most recent release?
Hmm. The most recent one is a Friends to Lovers romance titled Chemistry Lessons.
Oh,
And it's about Regan and Kylie, who have been best friends pretty much since they were 5 years old. And everyone thinks either they are already a couple or they should be a couple because they would be so perfect for each other. Um, but they insist that, oh, no, there's no chemistry between us. And Regan thinks, I know something about chemistry because she's a chemistry teacher.
aha.
And so they set out to prove to their friends who won't let it go that there really is no chemistry by conducting a little experiment. And so they say they will go on 3 dates with each other, kind of like mixing two substances and proving there is no reaction. But of course, as you can imagine, it doesn't quite go like that.
Oh my goodness, that is great. I love it. I love the premise.
It was really fun to write.
Oh, I bet it sounds like it's going to be a fun one to read. And is that out right now, or is it
Oh
coming?
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the 2021 novel. It was out I think in August, and my next one is coming also in August of this year. So a little more than a month to go.
Oh, great. And what's the one that's coming out? What's the name of that?
That's the name is Just a Touch Away, and it has an interesting premise as well. One of the two characters is a professional cuddler, which is actually, yeah, it's a thing.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it's totally real. Of course, it kind of took a little bit of a hit during the pandemic, when people couldn't just make an appointment to cuddle with a stranger.
Yeah.
But I think when the pandemic is truly over, and people are so starved for connection and for touch, I think it will really there will be a lot of demand for professional cuddling. And it's an interesting profession. It's different than I imagined it to be. It has so much to do with teaching people about consent and speaking up about what they want and need and what they don't want.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And the premise of the book is that the professional cuddler, which is more of a social person, she inherits a building, an apartment building, with a aloof ice queen she wants to be left alone. And so they inherit the building together, but there's a condition. They have to live together for 3 months in order to inherit. And so they kind of clash in the beginning and argue about everything, even about what kind of doormat they want for the apartment. So
That's great. So I'm really curious about this professional cuddler. How did you happen upon that?
I don't exactly remember where I saw it. Somewhere online, probably, like in a list of interesting jobs or something like that.
Okay.
And I that was years ago already, at least 2 or so years, and I have a thick notebook full of story ideas, and I mean professional cuddling, I mean that's perfect for romance, and so I immediately wrote it down and knew that one day I would write about it.
Great. And how did you do your research for that? Did you go?
No, it was the pandemic. So the one thing I didn't do is make an appointment with a professional cuddler, but all the rest I read everything there is online about professional cuddling. I went through the first step of the certification program, like an online course that you can take that teaches you like the different cuddling positions and the code of conduct and everything, and watched a lot of YouTube videos and so most of it was online.
Yeah. Wow. So it is a legit business with their own like code of ethics and certification.
It's not quite regulated by law yet. It's
Okay.
a very new industry, but there are efforts to make it a little bit more, to establish some rules and to establish some quality control. So there are platforms that offer further education to cutlers and supervision. And courses they can take before seeing the first client, but it's not a must do. It's not like you can only be a professional cutler if you have it, but a lot of them do.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes them more legitimate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And more safe, like they have to learn how to screen their clients, and to make it clear that what they are offering is a completely platonic service.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably so important and probably gets misconstrued. Wow.
Yep.
So, it sounds like you happened upon this and then did some research. And normally, do you do research like way ahead of time? And then begin writing, or do you like research as you go along, or maybe even both?
No, I do the research, most of the research first, because I always come up with great ideas for the plot by doing the research. And I find out what type of character would be attracted to this kind of job, for example. Not everyone can do it. And so in my process, once I have the initial idea, I always start with a lot of research. I do way more research that I actually need to really make it realistic. I feel like anyone who actually does that job should be able to nod along as they are reading and say, yes, this is how it's actually.
So you're pretty, I'll say, calculated in how you do your research, and it helps kind of formulate characters even and plots.
Yeah.
Wow, that is that's really I want to say like a scientific approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty organized. Most writers I know are more of the let's start writing first and then think about the rest later. But I'm more organized. My brain doesn't work like that. So I learned what works for me, and sometimes it's quote unquote a waste of time, but I don't think it really is. Like for this novel, I did like 900 hours of research.
Woo!
Yeah, and not everything makes it into the book, but if I know pretty much everything there is to know about a topic, I really can make it more realistic. I always say like it's like an iceberg, like you only show the tip of the iceberg in the novel, but the rest is there and it carries the tip. And I think readers still sense it. They feel like they're in the hand of an expert, and it's not just a few details, but I feel like I need to fundamentally understand what life is like for that character.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is. Are you familiar with the TV show Jeopardy?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, I bet you're really good at Jeopardy. It's all about like trivia about things.
I would say that being a writer really contributes to my education, because this is my 23rd novel, and for every book I learn at least like 2 topics, and maybe another setting and a job or a hobby or some kind of background or disability that they have. And I think that what makes books so special, not just for the writer but also for the reader, that you get to step into someone else's shoes and you can imagine, okay, what is life like for a professional cuddler, for someone who has MS or, like anything. And I think that's really what makes writing so special for me, to learn new things and new perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing, I find for myself, the best way to learn is to teach.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you cross subgenres. It seems like your overarching genre is romance. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And then like your subgenres, so you seem to really switch up sometimes. Like you're doing contemporary romance and some historical romance, suspense, paranormal, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of research about a whole lot of different types of subjects. That's pretty amazing. What has been like your favorite? What do you like to write? What's your favorite subgenre?
I don't actually have a favorite subgenre. As you said, my favorite genre is romance. Okay. But within romance, everything is fascinating to me. And what I like is not having to pick one. I like the variety, to be able to write a contemporary romance, and then if I feel like doing all of the research, I do a historical romance, and then go back to contemporary, and then do a paranormal romance. So I wouldn't want to pick just one, because I enjoy different things about the different subgenres, and to be able to switch between them helps to keep it fresh and interesting.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. It probably keeps you going, keeps you energized to switch it up. So what has been your favorite book to research then?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I can name one either. Like, I pick topics that I would like to learn about.
Okay.
And so everything. I can't just name. I mean, the Just a Touch Away, the one that is coming up in August, was kind of special, not just because the professional cuddling was so fascinating, but also because Hannah, the professional cuddler, she has aphantasia, which is, maybe you've heard of it,
yes.
the inability to visualize, which I have.
Oh,
and for me, this is. Oh, go ahead.
Well, how does that play into writing then for you?
For me, it's in my normal state.
Okay.
And I've talked to several other authors who also have aphantasia, and it's probably like a little more cognitive for me. I talk to a lot of writers who don't have aphantasia, and to them, writing is like taking notes in a movie that they are watching.
Okay.
And that kind of, I literally can't imagine what that might be like. Because for me, the aphantasia is not just not being able to visualize. I also can't conjure up any other mental senses. So I only found out, I think like 2 years ago or last year, from my Facebook group for readers, that when I'm describing a setting, that some readers are able to smell whatever I'm describing, or to taste it and to hear it. And that was, I knew about other people being able to visualize, but I had no idea other people could like imagine voices and taste, and that was mind-boggling. I couldn't believe it. It's like finding out other people can see ultraviolet or in some other range that I don't have. It was fascinating.
So it sounds like that has actually added to your writing skill level, in that it sounds like it's more cerebral. So you do a lot of research and do a lot of descriptors for the audience.
Yeah, I think it influences my writing, good and bad, probably. It just makes it different. In that I don't know. I mean, I can't compare it because this is the only way I've personally experienced. But I think maybe in a way writing is kind of my natural thing because my inner world is all words.
Yeah.
These words don't have sound, but they are words. And that's also often how I dream. I dream in stories, you know. And so for me, I don't have to translate in a movie that I'm seeing into words. It's already in words.
Yeah.
I just have to put them on paper.
Yeah.
So maybe it makes it easier.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's hard to say because I this is just how I've always been, and so it's hard to say how it would be. I would like to try it the other way, and then probably I would prefer to go back.
Yeah. 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 You know, you've adapted. This is how you operate in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, I would never would have known that. So you have, as we said before, you like the Oregon series is one of your series, but in addition to like some standalones, you have like a lot of series. Like I was looking at your website and I saw Hollywood series, Moonstone, Shapeshifter, Vampire Diet, Portland Police Bureau, and Oregon. So when you started these series, were they meant to be series or standalones and then turned into series like the Oregon series?
Usually it's the latter. I usually, because romance doesn't really lend itself to series. And sometimes people dare ask for a sequel about the same characters, and that's impossible to do because a romance is a story of how two people get together. Mm-hmm. And once you've told that story, you've told the story.
Yeah.
And you, of course, you can revisit them, and I love that because I really feel close to my characters, so I love revisiting them. So that's when I write a short story. But if I write an entire novel on the same characters, it's by definition not a romance anymore. It could be about a relationship, but it's not a romance because the romance is about will they or won't they get together and how will they get together. Yeah. So what I sometimes do is, or usually do is, if there's more to tell about a certain couple, I will write a romance novel that is about another couple getting together and have the other couple from the first book as supporting characters so that I can show readers how they are doing and how is the relationship going and maybe there are other things in life that they are struggling with, and I can show that in addition to that new romance for the other couple.
Yeah. And do you introduce the new couple in the original book?
Sometimes, if I already, usually it's like take the Fair Oak series. It started out with Perfect Rhythm, which is a story between a burnt out pop star who comes home into her tiny little small hometown and falls in love with her father's nurse, who is an asexual woman. And in that novel, I had supporting characters. Holly's best friend is a bakery owner, and Leo's ex-girlfriend is a florist and owns a flower shop in that little town. And they were both very interesting and complex characters. So I knew, okay, they might make a good couple. Mm-hmm. So they were already in the first book as supporting characters and then got their own book. So that's usually how it goes.
Okay. All right. So, Jay, out of all of your 22 published novels, what would you say has been like the most difficult to write?
Finally, a question I can answer with a definitive. Okay, this one I can decide on one. Definitely Just Physical, which is part of the Hollywood series, which is the third novel. Okay. It's a book about Jill, who's a not yet very successful actress and she also has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And she's still physically doing pretty well, but she doesn't know how long will it stay that way. Will it progress or not? So she has decided for herself she is gonna stay single. She feels like she will end up being a burden to a potential partner, and she has no right to be in a relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and but she is it's not it might sound like a tough to read depressing book, but it's not at all, because she was one of these minor characters who she was introduced in Damage Control as the best friend of the main character, and she stole the scene. Whatever she was in, she stole the scene, and she demanded her own book. Oh. She's such a fun and really spunky character who has a great witty sense of humor. And so in Just Physical, she meets a stunt woman, and they fall in love and decide, because Jill doesn't want a relationship, that it's just going to be just physical, as the title says. Mm-hmm. And that journey, that inner journey of her being very sure she should not have a relationship, to slowly becoming more open, mm-hmm. and understanding that having MS doesn't mean that she needs to stay alone. Mm-hmm. That took me a lot of revision to get it right and to make it feel authentic. And I scrapped the entire 3 opening chapters, completely tossed them out and started over, and rewrote the rest of the book completely.
Wow. How long did it take you from start to finish?
Oh, I don't remember the exact, that was a few years ago, so I don't remember the exact, how long exactly, but the revisions took me as long as writing the first draft. So
sounds like it.
I would say like maybe 3 months for the first draft, and then another 3 to get it right.
Wow. Okay. Like, is that like your timeline for writing a book is like 3 months?
Usually, yeah. I'm a slow writer.
I would say that's fast, Jay.
Not really. I mean, I do this full time.
Okay. All right.
So full time. We full time writers say we write full time, but actually we are wearing a lot of hats. It's a lot of other stuff that you do on the side. But I know it. I try not to compare myself to other authors. When I hear that they are writing like 5,000 words a day, I'm like, oh my God, I can only dream of that. But then again, because I do so extensive research, extensive plotting, character profiles, and I know the characters really well, and I'm a slow but very, very clean writer, usually I don't need that much revision. Okay. So pretty much I could write the first draft, and I work with beta readers as I go. So by the time I'm through the book, my beta readers are also through the book, and I revise as I go. So by the end, I pretty much could publish the book almost.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's really, you sound like you're really disciplined.
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah, it really helps if you're working from home and your own boss, it helps to have discipline. Otherwise, you probably waste all your time on social media or, doing other things.
Oh, yeah. I'd be so distracted. So, in addition, right, to being the full-time writer, as you said, right, you have another gig. You're a senior editor at Ylves Publishing House. Right?
Yeah.
And tell us about how you became involved in that, and does it complement your writing career?
Mm-hmm. It wasn't really planned that way. The owner of Ylves Publishing, Astrid Oletz, is a fellow German, and there aren't that many Germans who are writing sapphic fiction in English, so we kind of know each other. I started out She started out writing her own books, not thinking about opening a publishing house. And about 15 years ago, she asked me to beta read for her. So that's how we knew each other. And by the time she established her own publishing house, which I think was 10 years ago, I had already published 5 novels and several short stories, and I knew the publishing business. So I was a bit of an unofficial advisor whenever she felt like she needed a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And a few months later, she kind of casually mentioned, if you ever want to publish a book with me, the door is always open. And that got me thinking that, I could write my books in English and continue to publish them in English, but then also translate them into my native language and make them available to German readers too, because there isn't really that much sapphic romance that is published in German.
Oh, okay.
So I joined Ylva as an author,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point I had edited manuscripts for dozens of other writers already, and I got a certificate in editing from the Academy of German Book Trade. And I think in 2014, Astrid offered me the senior editor position. And I accepted.
Cool. Good for you. That's awesome. So, you mentioned that you published really for, or at least started publishing in English, and then will translate into German. And I'm wondering, do you, just in your overall content, do you try to write what you think readers want? And that includes even in other languages, or do you try to be original and just write what you want to write?
Both, actually. I don't really see it as a contradiction.
Oh, that's good.
I feel like what romance readers want is a heartfelt love story between two characters who are at the same time interesting and unique, but also relatable.
Yeah.
Even if they are like celebrities or pop stars or actresses or I don't know, spies or detectives or shapeshifters, they need to be relatable. But within that framework, I mean, that's very basic structure of what romance readers want. I feel that leaves so much space for unique ideas. That I don't feel like I'm constricted by reader expectations. And I mean, I started out as a reader. I have been a lifelong reader, and I write the books that I want to read as a reader. Right now I'm rereading one of my own books because I just like them, So I feel like I can do both, give readers what they want, because it's coincidentally also what I want to write.
That's awesome. That's perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, how has becoming like a published author changed your life?
Oh my God, changed it so completely. If I could go back and tell like my 20-year-old self what would be my life 20 years later, I would have been, yeah, sure. I would not have believed it.
Really?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think very few people grow up thinking that they can make a living as a writer.
Yeah.
Because it's just a reality. Very few people can. And if you figure out, oh, okay, I'm a lesbian and I want to write about lesbians and sapphic people, well, it's a small genre,
Yeah. You're narrowing your reader audience. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I could make more money if I wrote something else, but I don't want to write something else, and I don't want to kind of sell out. So I didn't think it was like a realistic option. And the first book, of course, it was a milestone on that journey. But back in 2007, the publishing world looked completely different. I think that was actually the year that the Amazon introduced the Kindle.
Oh, okay.
Ebooks were just slowly starting, and some people thought it wouldn't take, it wouldn't, like, it was just a phase.
Yeah.
So the world was very different back then, the publishing world.
Yeah.
So I think no one could have predicted that. I didn't think it would happen, and it was only maybe 5 years later that when I had half a dozen books out, that it really looked like, okay, it might be a realistic option for me to do this full time. I was still taking a chance.
Yeah.
But it looked doable. And it changed my complete life. I mean, I get to work from home, which fits my personality much better.
Okay.
I mean, it was a blessing during the pandemic for sure.
Yeah.
I met so many people who became an important part of my life. Pretty much my two very best friends I met through my writing. I met so many readers who told me I changed their lives.
Oh,
and that's just like, that's better than any award,
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. There are, I always think of the people who are in like remote areas and don't have access to, libraries or bookstores or, like it's just, social media and ebooks and, it just really have transformed people's lives.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in a tiny, tiny little village of 800 people, no openly LGBT people. There were libraries, I mean, in the next town over, but there was no LGBT content that I could find. So it's incredible how far we've come.
Yeah.
So it's just, it was a journey that I never would have thought would happen, but I'm very glad it did.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you this kind of as a second part of this question is, so then what does literary success look like to you?
I like a simple life. I don't need to make $1 million or be on the New York Times bestseller list. I think pretty much what I'm already doing. To be able to write the books I love, make a living from it. As I said, it's not about the money, but food costs money, so it's nice to be able to eat.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And to be able to hear from readers who love my books just as much. And I think that's it. Yeah.
You're not asking for fame and fortune.
No, I don't want fame and fortune. I mean, I think I'm now in a place where I'm pretty well known in our genre. And I try to use that for good. But I don't want the attention of being like a super famous celebrity. I like my life the way it is. And I'm at the point where I really am happy with my life.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Contentment is nice.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned that your 20-year-old self and now, and do you think, like in everything that you've seen in publishing and writing in the sapphic world, from my vantage point, I think it's changed a lot, and just grown tremendously. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean the LGBT community or the publishing world?
The publishing and writing world in particular.
Oh, yeah. It changed a lot. Like I already said, ebooks, it was a revolution. It was a really big change. Now it's like most authors make their income, or most of their income from ebooks. And the paperbacks are more like an aside. The audiobook market is really growing. Audiobooks are really becoming popular. as a reader, I also got into audiobooks. I still read a lot of ebooks, but to give my eyes a break at night, I also listen to audiobooks. And I think a lot of authors are seeing more income from audiobooks, it's also great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big change, definitely too. And it just even I think marketing and communications has changed so much that people who want to self-publish really have an opportunity to do that and to do it well, whereas in the past that was so difficult.
Absolutely, yeah. Now if you look at the top 100 of lesbian romance at Amazon, it's dominated by indie authors.
Really?
Because yeah, totally. I would say like 85%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
They can be more flexible than publishing houses. A lot of them know the market really well, and they know how to promote themselves. And I think as an author, that's one thing that I really like about it, is that you constantly have to learn and to adjust to new situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's true. You do, and things are changing so fast. And you have to keep up with it. So yeah. Wow. So I am looking forward to August, where Just a Touch Away will be published, right? And is that through Ylves Publishing?
Yeah, it will be, I think, out everywhere August 24.
Awesome. We look forward to that. And I'm going to check out Backwards to Oregon. Actually, I think I'm going to check out the audio version of that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, Jay, do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Well, most of all, I think I'd like to say thank you to my listeners and to my readers for following me on this journey. And I mean, I couldn't do it without my readers, and especially those who've read pretty much everything I've written, maybe historical romance or paranormal. Even if it's a little bit out of their comfort zone and they normally only enjoy contemporary, they gave a chance to these subgenres and trusting me to still make it an enjoyable book for them. And I very much appreciate that they place so much trust in me. And so, yeah, thank you.
Well, we appreciate that you keep writing all the great books that you do. So, and again, we look forward to August 24th when Just a Touch Away is released.
Yep.
Well, thank you again, Jay, for being with us today. That's all the time that we have. I'm Anita Kelly, and thanks for joining Liz talk about books, baby. Until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.